Okay, we're ready. So today, folks, we are giving you the 5 biggest life lessons from Brazilian Jiu Jitsu.
So, John, can I interrupt already?
Please, yeah.
This is huge. The 5 biggest life lessons from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So, you're saying if someone hasn't done Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and they're thinking about whether they should do it or not, these are some of the biggest reasons they could do it. That other than learning Jiu-Jitsu, how it applies to their life.
I think so. This transcends the sport itself, the martial art. This is what's going to help you make your life better. I want to get into the first one right away, and I want your opinion on this. Here's the thing: like if you train in any martial art, like I have a lot of people call me and they say, "I want to train with you because I know martial arts teaches you discipline and teaches you this, that, and the other thing." And the sad truth, I think, is that it doesn't necessarily teach you anything. Like you have to go out of your way to learn things. But there's one thing that jujitsu may force upon you, which is finding comfort in discomfort. And I know that's not the biggest sales pitch for jujitsu anybody could come up with, but you've been there, right? You're going to feel uncomfortable, right?
Right, but I'm also thinking how, like, you hear a lot of this idea of teaching you discipline, right?
Yep.
But then it's almost like it's different when you have a dojo teaching discipline to a 5-year-old,
Oh, right.
and they're like, "I'm teaching you discipline because recite like I will be disciplined," and that works for the kindergartner.
Right.
But then maybe an adult is like, "Well, that's not gonna. I'm not gonna learn discipline. Like I'm a grown man or woman. Like I don't have to learn discipline." But you're saying that, well,
I don't even think that is discipline because,
right.
if I join the Marines or something and the drill instructor screams at me and I'm terrified of the guy and I just do my jumping jacks and push-ups and I do everything he tells me to because I'm terrified of him. I don't know if that's not really discipline. Discipline is when you don't have anyone yelling at you and you get up off the couch or get out of bed and you do what you need to do. That's really discipline, right?
Doing something voluntarily
Right.
that is difficult
Yeah.
and uncomfortable.
Yeah. That you kind of don't want to do, but you know it's the right thing to do. So I think that's hard for somebody else to teach you.
So you haven't even really gotten into the point about
Right.
comfort and discomfort yet, but I'll say one thing before you get in.
Yeah.
Which is, I learned this early on, and this goes for everyone that's doing it, already doing the sport knows this, and this applies to MMA, boxing, all these sports, that a lot of people that don't do it, and maybe not even everyone that does this knows this, but a lot of people that don't do the sport think basically that the people that do it are like another breed, like maniacs. Like, because you hear boxers like, I like getting hit, I like getting punched in the face. And then people are like, well, I don't like getting punched in the face, so I'm not going to box. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they could apply to jujitsu where there's people like, I just thrive in places of discomfort.
Yeah.
And it makes people think, well, then I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, but they don't realize. And for me, this gives more credit to the people that do jiu-jitsu or box or MMA,
Yep.
which is like most of them are the same as everyone else. They don't want to do it.
Right.
We've said before, like,
Right.
legends of the sport, George St. Pierre, maybe the best to ever do it. Tito Ortiz are two I can think of that said they threw up before every fight from nerves.
Right.
And it's like, to me, it's more impressive. It's like, no, they are nervous. They don't want to get into a cage in front of everyone and fight, and they still do it. And at a lower level, that's what I'm saying for jiu-jitsu, it's not like, well, everyone here's a maniac, and everyone here's a great street fighter and a great whatever else that when from the day they walk in the gym. It's like, it's actually people that experience the same discomfort and learn to deal with it.
I think it's a very rare person who would train a combat sport and not experience any discomfort. Yeah. You'd have to be a psychopath of some type.
But I think a lot of people out there think that's who's in the gym.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
They're just like, you're a bunch of maniacs in there. And then, of course, the people play into it. Like I said, it's like the boxer saying, I like getting hit.
Right.
People going like, yeah, we're a bunch of maniacs.
Dan, let me ask you, do you think they really like getting hit or they're just saying that?
I think nobody likes getting
Yeah,
hit.
yeah. I don't like getting it. Yeah.
I mean, again, there's this 1% of 1% of
Oh,
1%
right.
that maybe is a maniac,
Yeah.
but or even a 1% of 1%, less than 1%, honestly, that somehow is not uncomfortable their first day in the gym, and
Yep.
just feels like I don't mind fighting, but I think it's important for people to realize that that's not what most people are like. They're
Right.
like, let's try this out, and you're overcoming it.
But that's the thing. Jiu-jitsu does sort of force upon you. It's going to put you in a place of discomfort. I asked my son and one of my students, what do you think are the biggest life lessons? And my son said, being forced to problem solve in stressful situations. And I think that's what happens in jiu-jitsu. Like, somebody's dominating you and they're trying to strangle you, and you have to like resist the urge to emotionally respond and try to find a technical way to respond.
And I think it's an exaggerated amount of stress. So it's sort of like
Right. But it's self-exaggerated, right?
right.
Yeah.
But I don't. But there's some like I think in real life, like if you're very accustomed to someone trying to strangle you as hard as they can,
Mm.
then you're like this disapproving look from a coworker maybe doesn't affect you as much.
Oh,
You're
right,
like,
right.
I'm used to really
Yeah.
like so.
Like one of my students, Dan, he said, relatively new guy, and he's a white belt, but really great student and developing quickly. So he went and did a tournament. He's over 40, and he entered like the adult division. So he was competing with some young guys in their 20s. So I'm so old that I don't have a frame of reference for this. But if you're over 40, the thought of competing with like 22-year-old guys can be intimidating, can be
half
daunting.
your age. Still.
Yeah, literally half your age. And he did excellent. I don't think he won his division. He might have came in second, but he did very well, and he more than held his own. So then, like a week later, he had to give a presentation. I think he was essentially applying for a new position, and he found that experience was very encouraging, gave him a lot of confidence. He was like, well, I just went against these 20-year-olds and I survived somehow, and I actually came out pretty good. I can do this presentation. And he got the new position. He basically got a promotion and got a position.
Like no one's probably going to armbar me in this interview.
nobody's going to jump up and start strangling me in this interview. Yeah.
So my son, I had doing, and he was like kind of a quiet kid, kind of a skinny kid, and I had him do wrestling in middle school.
Okay.
And he was not sort of like, again, related to what I said earlier, he was not the kind of kid that was like a little crazed kid. Like I just want to I want to tackle somebody.
He wasn't begging you.
Yeah, he was like an introvert and quiet kid. And I had him do wrestling for this exact reason. I had no thought of Matt.
Yeah.
Like he had no thought of like you're going to be a state champ, but it was like I want you to have this discomfort and stress in this venue, and then later discomfort and stress is not going to seem so bad.
Yeah.
And it can be as far as like it's like you're literally both the physical discomfort, which is I think what you're talking about.
Yep.
But then there's some sort of social discomfort, like walking in a new gym, having maybe people evaluate you. And then with wrestling, it was even worse. It was like you're literally everyone is watching you and you're in front of everyone. Yeah. That's a lot of stress of eyes on you.
I would define that as social psychological stress, which can be much worse than physical stress, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
And isn't that also, you've said,
but you get that in the gym, even doing jiu-jitsu. It's like, oh, this person is dominating me and controlling me. What does this mean? And why is it happening? And you have to sort of, suss it all out. You have to figure it out, and forces you to look at these things. I mean, if you're introspective, if you're doing it with mindfulness and being deliberate, and say like, oh, this guy's getting the better of me. What does it mean? And if you don't get overly emotional, you can say, oh yeah, well, he's doing it a little bit longer than me, and he's a little bit better at it than me, or whatever.
Isn't this related to something everyone that's done jiu-jitsu for a while has talked about, where there's this sort of filter where sort of there's a likelihood of the big, strong, you know, uh, tough looking guys that come in and say to you some version of I'm a street fighter or I'm a tough guy, they almost always wash out because of this, I think, because it's like they come in and they're like, why am I losing to this suburban dad?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like what? And they can't take it. They can't
Right.
take the psychological stress
Yeah.
of that.
That seems to happen less, Dan. Like back in the day, that would have guys would come in and some little guy, some big strong guy would come in, tough guy, and some little guy would armbar him, and they would slam the mat and swear and storm out and never come back again. But I think now people watch the UFC and they see this. Oh, this guy's 125 pounds, 135 pounds, and they're really good fighters. So it's happening less because people understand the nature of the sports and they understand how important technique is and how much leverage smaller people can develop when they get good at the sports. So.
Right, but it's all of a piece of what we're talking about, right? Like it's sort of what does it mean for me to lose in this situation, and what does it mean for me?
That's huge, right? And how do you rationalize that away? So, yeah, so I see it sometimes where some guy gets the better of them, and their rationalization is like just a dishonest one. They're like, "Well, yeah, I was trying to help him do his pass," and they're like, "What? No, you were trying as hard as you could." And that young kid passed your guard. It's just like, why are you deceiving yourself? And like that self-deception is so destructive. It doesn't help you at all. But it's not easy. It's very hard to be completely honest. It's not easy at all.
Right. I've run into that myself. Not on the side, like on the side of going against someone much better than me, and I just have the slightest success. Like maybe I passed their guard for even just a second, and like they regained it, and it wouldn't have even counted in a tournament. And then they go out of their way to be like, yeah, so I was wondering if you were going to see that opening. And I'm like, could you just give me this one thing? Like, but also it's like I could feel you trying to stop me. Like, that's the other thing. It doesn't quite work. It's like I felt that you did not give me that opening. Like I felt that you were trying, that you reacted a fraction of a second too late, and you scrambled.
Here's my take.
And it's like, and you're better than me, and you got it back. Like, why are you doing that? You're holding on to this,
But then I think you're self-deprecating because I feel like sometimes you'll actually do something very positive and successful, and you may interpret it as, "Oh, that freaking guy let me do that."
All the time. I think probably every positive successful thing I've done in jiu-jitsu for years.
That's so funny. You know what I noticed is some guys, you're not like this, I don't think, but there's some guys who are very self-critical and they almost out loud verbally chastise themselves. So something will happen. They go, "Oh, you dummy. Why did you do that? You screwed that up again. I knew you were going to do that." And they're talking to themselves out loud. And it used to kind of bum me out. I'd be like, "Dude, stop saying that to yourself. Like, give yourself a break, man." But I'm wondering, what do you think? I think it's just their personality. And it's really not hurting them that much. It's just the way they roll, how they operate. I don't know. What do you think?
Maybe, but also it's worth pointing it out and being like, work on it. Like try to, because of this point you're saying, part of what you're trying to gain from jiu-jitsu is to stop doing that, right? Like,
good
stop
point.
Like beating yourself up over things you can't control. Like do what you can. Like, you tried.
It's just a small mistake. It's like, and I think what the downside I see, Dan, is when they're spending that time berating themselves, they're not in the moment anymore, and they're not really thinking about jujitsu. They're just beating themselves up. So I'm like, if you could shorten that go, just like, oh shoot, but then think like, oh, what should I have been doing? What did I do, and what should have been doing? That would probably be energy better spent. But I don't know.
All right. So So we're all a little bit awry here. Like, so the point was,
big life lesson is jiu-jitsu will teach you to problem solve in stressful situations, or another way to say it is to find some comfort in discomfort. Like you're in the bottom, the side control, the guy's driving his shoulder at your face and it hurts. But if you can have your wits about you you're always going to be able to perform better.
So I was thinking, I just this jumped back like
Yeah.
to my son. I literally thought like I put him in this wrestling in this tough spot, and I was literally like later in high school. I think it's easier for him to ask girls out.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
someone that's done jujitsu is like, "What are you talking about, you maniac?"
Oh, right.
But he was in jujitsu and wrestling, so I said both
Yeah.
things. Um, and I think it was like these were so stressful and so hard, like put in spots where he doesn't want to be in, uncomfortable. It resets almost maybe the nervous system where it's like, well, I can ask this girl, like I'm not gonna like it if she says no, but I don't like I faced a lot of things I didn't like, and like
I think that's really interesting because if you think about it, as a young man, what are your built-in insecurities or questions? Can I find a mate? Can I find a woman who will value me and appreciate me? The other one is, can I protect myself? Can I defend myself? Can I defend my partner? And maybe when you do some jujitsu or some wrestling, you get some information and your information might be like, oh, I'm not the toughest guy in the town here, but you know what? I can hold up my end of the situation here. I can defend myself. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna be an easy walkover. And I think when um, I don't know if it's the same for women, but I think if a man learns that, it gives him a lot of confidence. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, oh, I can stand up for myself. That's a great feeling to have. And I think jujitsu is so technical. If you're doing it the right way, and if you're training live in the right way, you're going to get information at least then.
Mm.
And and you may find out, well, I'm not in the top 1%, but you also may find out, well, I'm not in the bottom 1%. Like, oh, I'm in the top 59%, whatever it is. It's probably
I'll
good
take it.
information.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah.
And if you keep training, you're going to be like,
Right.
you're not going to stay in the top 59%
Right.
for long.
Yeah.
But I think it's even broader, where it's sort of like you also learn this lesson of sort of discomfort and losses and occasional failures. Like it's not the end of the world.
Not the end
Like
of
I
the
think
world.
there's a lot of people out there that haven't done tournaments and haven't done certainly jujitsu or something hard like this, and they're like, I'm not going to ask the girl out. I'm not going to do jujitsu. I'm not going to try any of this. It's
Yeah.
very safe. And isn't that most people? They're like, I'm not going to try anything where I could really embarrass myself or fail.
Oh, right.
Or just look stupid or lose
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
Right. And then if you expose yourself through jujitsu, you're like, okay, I could lose. This could go badly, but I'll live. Like, and that's even
Right.
beyond like my success. I'm great at it, or I'm a tough guy.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, if it doesn't go well, it doesn't go well. It's not the end of the world.
It's a good feeling. I think I told you this story. It was a year or so ago. I was in a place in Brookline, Mass. It was like a pub, the restaurant, nice place we go to. No, it's like a bar that serves burgers and whatever. It's good. We love it. And I went over there with my son, and we're always sitting next to me, and he sends me on Instagram some like little reel. It's like John Danaher teaching a technique or some such thing. Then I don't know about you, but if my son sends me a message, I'm opening that message immediately. Like any interaction you get from your kids, when you guys get older and have kids, it's precious when your kids are actually approving of you somehow or interested in what you think about something, right?
Even want to contact you
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Without asking for money or something. So I'm like, oh, I get it. So I immediately tap on it, and it starts playing Danaher talking about something. And we're in a bar, and there's music playing, there's people walking around, the TV on, it's loud, everyone's talking, and the video starts playing, and it's not particularly loud, Dan.
Especially John Danaher, very soothing.
Yeah. And there was this maniac sitting next to me, and he just loses it because I'm playing a video.
Mm-hmm.
We later learned that he's kind of a nut, and like he's riding the subway, and people play their phones really loud and it annoys him. So now he's finally standing up to it because he's sitting next to me and he's in Brookline. So he feels
had
like
enough. Is standing up.
I'm in a
to
safe
you.
neighborhood. He's going to stand up to me, this white-haired little guy. And I was like, dude, I'm like, what are you going to do? Beat me up? And
so what did he do? He like started yelling.
He started screaming, like yelling, "What the fuck?" Oh, pardon me. Like nobody wants to listen to that effing bleep, blah blah bleep. And I was dumbfounded. I'm like you can barely hear this. Like, what's going on? But he was just like a coiled spring, ready to go. And then I was like, what are you going to do?
It's a
Beat
little
me?
funny to think of that guy's luck. Like, I'm not going to stand up to anyone on the subway.
Yeah.
I'm worried. And then he's like, now I've picked my battle, and it's you.
Yeah, that was a mistake. Yeah.
It's like the most trained person he's ever sat next to in his life.
But what gave me comfort is like, I don't know what this guy's all about. Maybe he will beat me up. And I'm like, you know what? If you take me outside and beat me up, I don't care. It's like not that big of a deal because like we're training all the time and I've done a bunch of MMA. This is not the first time I'm going to get punched in the face a
Yeah.
bunch of times. Like it's not the end of the world for me, you know? And, but that's a good feeling. It gives you a little bit of security.
Again,
you
that's
know?
what another thing people miss about training is that they're like, well, then you get to are you good enough to beat everyone up? And it's like
Yeah.
that's not the thing. It's that you're like, I could win, I could lose, it could be close. Like what?
Right.
Like it's just like it doesn't. Two things. One, I'm not scared of the actual physicality of the conflict, but more importantly, I think probably 10 times more importantly,
Yeah.
is like I'm not scared of um the interaction. Like I'm
Yeah.
not like, oh no, what's happening?
The social,
The
psychological
social, yeah,
ramifications.
right. You're
Like,
not just like what's
I'm gonna
in
be,
this
I'm gonna have
tense
to hang
thing.
my head in shame because this guy
And
punched me in the
I've
face.
said this before on earlier podcasts, way back, where that's where it's come into play for me. Where and you hear this sort of stereotypically, like someone who's trained carries themselves in a way that no one wants to mess with them. And I always sort of felt like I don't. Do I care? I didn't feel like I carried myself any differently. But I've told stories before where like I was at a concert and some guy was like, there were people standing up in front of us. And the guy comes up and just taps me on the shoulder and goes, "You need to sit down." And I was like, what do you mean? Like the people in front of us are
Can you get all those people?
I was like the people in front of me are standing up. He's like, "I don't care about them. You need to sit down." And this is again where like I don't know how it would have turned out. I was always I probably never would have sat down at any point in my life, but I probably would have been very stressed.
Oh, right.
And this, I just sort of felt like calm and annoyed and was like, what are you talking about? They're all standing up. I'm not going to sit down. And then as it escalated, he was like, you need to sit down. And I felt calm the whole time. And I was just like, it reached a point where I said, look, we were having a back and forth. And I was saying, look, I'll sit down if they sit down. But if they stand up, I got to see. And then it reached a point where I just said, look, look, I'm not sitting down. So now what? What's going to happen? Now what? I'm not sitting down. So what are you going to do? And then he went and he was like, I'm going to talk to security. And left. And then I saw him way off, like talking to some security guy, like yelling. And the security guy, like, I couldn't hear at all. They were too far away, but I heard the security going, like, just pointing at like all the people standing up. But the point was how I felt was just like, and I wasn't sitting there thinking anything about like, I'm trained and I can kick his ass.
Right.
Like it's more like I think a change in your nervous system.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I'm a tough guy. I didn't think any of that. And I don't see myself that way.
Right.
If anyone listening thinks that's how I'm.
Right.
It's not how I feel. I'm just like, it's just sort of calm to me. Like all, day in, day out of this physicality, you just feel like, who knows how this goes.
That's a good point, Dan. It actually changes your nervous system where if you're just hyping yourself up, talking to yourself, trying to get courage in an inactive way, or doing one of those martial arts where you never really spar, maybe it changes your nervous system. I don't know. But if you're doing live training, that's going to change you,
And the other thing we said about live training is that I think you're less violent, right? Because like there's no possible way I would have hit that guy and again, I don't think I would have with or without training, but I think if you're nervous and you're scared, you're like, maybe I'll try to just take this guy out before he hurts me.
You might have
or like I remember one time when I was much younger, I think around college age, where there was some big guy and he was drunk and he was harassing me he was harassing me in a men's room. I'd never told you this story.
Weird. Right?
I was just standing in a urinal. He's like, "What are you looking at?"
This is in college, Dan?
Yeah. And I'm like, I think it was grad school.
Okay.
But I was
Indiana?
young guy. No, this was Amherst.
Okay. Yeah.
So, a town near. It was at that time. Massachusetts anyway.
Yeah.
And a guy's hammered and much bigger than me. And he came into the men's room. He's like, "What are you looking at? What'd you say?" And I'm like, "I'm just at the urinal." And then I separated, went somewhere else, and then I saw him harassing my friends, and they were at the top of a flight of stairs. And it crossed my mind for a second to just walk up and just shove him down the stairs. Like, I didn't do
That
it.
probably would have been effective. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't
But
do it.
dangerous. Yeah.
It didn't do it.
Yeah.
But like, the point is abstractly that like when you don't know how to really, you're not comfortable with the
right.
physicality. I'm like, you're going to be more violent. You're
Right.
like, I got to get this guy. I'm not comfortable
Right.
squaring off with this guy. I'll shove him down the stairs.
Yeah.
Right. Or like, or
You can't accurately predict the outcomes. So like you're more likely to do
just
something.
do something extreme.
Yeah.
Or you hear that all the time of people that pull guns or knives, or like they're like, I have to protect myself
Yeah.
here. Like, and it's like if you can sort of feel like I'm comfortable in some sort of physical altercation.
Yeah.
You don't immediately go to like, I just have to take him out because I'm terrorized.
Yeah.
If that makes sense at all. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm terrorized. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not used to this.
Yeah.
I don't do it. Let me end this however I can end it.
Definitely.
I didn't, and to be clear, I didn't
shove
the
him
guy
down.
the stairs.
That would have been cool. But yeah, that could be dangerous. Yeah. Don't shove people downstairs. If they don't have to.
Potentially not so cool, depending on how he landed.
Yeah.
Could have been good actually if he.
So Dan, this whole idea of comfort and discomfort.
Yeah.
The other little kind of concept that comes out of this is focus on what you can control.
Mhm.
So I've trained with Dan for many years. So you're difficult to submit. So even when you get in a bad position, you can stay calm and you can focus on what you can control.
I have become accustomed to being in a bad position in jiu-jitsu. I have definitely.
But that's one of these life lessons. Like, if you can bring that into your life, like focus on what you can control and worry less about what you cannot control. I think that is very powerful.
That's
lesson.
huge, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to sort of see what it's like to function in a good position in jiu-jitsu.
Then you're controlling them as well. Well, that idea of focus on what you can control brings you to our second life lesson. So this is a lesson that jiu-jitsu will not foist upon you, that you have to pull out, which is focus on process goals over results goals. So in other words, instead of like, I'm going to focus on getting to the next belt, whether it's blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, like it's good to focus on that. But if you focus on your process, your training, how many times you're training, the quality of your training, all of these things, then that's what's going to bring you to your results goals. So whatever result goals you have, there are certain activities and actions that are required to get there. So if you can focus on those things, the activities and the actions, you're going to get to your results much more reliably and faster than if you don't do that.
Yeah, I've turned on belts a little bit lately.
Yeah.
Like mentally, like where I'm like, I think, are they maybe more of an obstacle than a help? Like, because I think the help is people like to get them. It's like, oh, I worked hard and I get there. So I'm not totally saying they're wrong or bad.
Right.
And they show where you're at vaguely, roughly where you're at and skill wise. But there's this downside of like people wanting belts and like thinking,
focusing too much on the goal and not enough on the process. But yeah, I think it has to do with people's personalities. So there's some personalities, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing or a good thing, but the whole belt system, even the strike system, is going to motivate them way more, and that's going to move their progress along. And ultimately, that's the most important thing, is your skill development. So I try to stay completely open-minded about it. Although at our academy, we have stopped giving out stripes, but I think for some people it may help them if we did give them stripes, but some people it may not help them. So I think everybody's different, and some people, more incremental markers of their progress would help them, and other people it might be a distraction. So like I think we have a great culture and vibe in our academy right now where we have some of these killer blue belts training with our black belts, and they're just going at each other, and there's no psychological repercussions. They're just trying to do good jujitsu, and to
That's
me,
what I
that's
was
the
thinking.
ultimate.
Some of these guys are blue belts. They're so good.
Yeah.
Super
Yeah.
dedicated and work hard and come in all the time and athletic and
Yeah.
it's just like
My son is a purple belt right now, and he's so good. And Dan, I don't know if it's an age thing, but he still has this hunger to get better, to take in new information, and I don't have the energy anymore. So like he'll watch an hour every day of instructionals. Best I can watch 10 minutes, and like so I'm like a vampire feeding off of his energy, and I'm getting better.
him
And
watching just show me what you learned.
yeah, that's about it. And I am learning stuff. I'm getting better, but I don't have that natural drive in me anymore that he has. Although I am getting better and I want to get better, but it's much harder for me to summon that energy, and he has it. So, I mean, good for him. That's awesome. But I guess I'm just trying to underscore that everybody's different, you know?
Sure.
Yeah. But process goals are good. Even so, the last tournament we did, Rory and I went out to Vegas and we did the American Nationals, and good for us. We both got gold medals. So it's father-son gold medals at American Nationals. Pretty rare, I think.
Congratulations.
Pretty, pretty
How many
awesome.
times that happened?
And I was still stressed before the tournament, Dan, but afterwards I was like, thank God I did this. Like, what a life experience that I get to share a gold medal with my son.
Yeah.
So awesome. But process goals helped me. So I wanted to improve my takedowns. So to help deal with my anxiety, I said, I'm ultimately after skill development. So I'm going to focus on my takedowns in this tournament, and I'm not going to worry about the results too much. And then I only had 2 matches, and I won them both. And the funny thing is, I didn't get any takedowns. Like, the first guy shot on me so quickly that I sprawled, and then I got on top, and I just basically, he never got up again. And then the second guy was very good. He had great defense. So halfway through the match, I hadn't scored a takedown yet. So then my strategy was just to pull guard at that point, and then I ended up sweeping him, and I won the match. But the process, focusing on process goals, I found to be very effective, very helpful. And I do it with my YouTube channel. So I'm like, well, I'm going to put out a bunch of shorts. I'm going to put out a short video every day or 2 every day. And I did that for several months. And what happened was I built a discipline of putting them out, but I also got better at editing them, and I got better at coming up with the content that people wanted, you know? So, focusing on process, very helpful. So Dan, that's our first 2. So our third life lesson from jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, you got to start getting through these life lessons.
Yeah.
Too.
While we're still alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the third one is another one that you have to teach yourself. Like, this isn't going to come naturally. You got to.
So, but I think this is also an important point that like it's not just like when you do jiu-jitsu, this will all happen, which is sort of true. Like we said, for like learning to deal with discomfort, but also it's worth listening to because it's like try to take these things out of it.
Yeah.
Like actively,
you have to. And this one is seek technical solutions. So here's the story. So there's a guy that you and I both know, great guy. We both like Mike Campanella, amazing athlete. He doesn't currently train with us. We trained with us for a while. Really great athlete, great jiu-jitsu player, great MMA fighter.
Great guy.
He runs a business in Needham now. He teaches fitness for people. Is it PEX?
Yeah, PEX.
And great guy. If you're in the Needham area, you should go see him, get fit and get healthy. And so here's how I remember it. This was a long time ago, so I could be completely wrong. So my apologies to Mike if I'm wrong, but he was struggling in some position, and I said to him, so what do you think you need to do? And he was like, I need to get more explosive, and I need to train and I'm like, no, first of all, Mike, you're one of the most explosive people I've ever met in my life. You're a supreme athlete. And I'm like, no. You should be looking for technical solutions.
He literally like sprinted in college.
Yeah.
Like on the track team.
Oh, yeah.
He's played
phenomenal athlete. Yeah. And great jiu-jitsu player. But he was looking for sort of natural attributes as a solution. And I'm like, no. You need to find a technical solution. And in life, technology trumps everything else. You can work as hard as you want, but if you can find technology to help you achieve your goals, that's the way to go. Technical solutions.
I say not coming from the explosive, awesome natural athlete perspective. I've done that too. I think it is really helpful to. Sometimes I'm in a position and I'm just like, so just what should I do here? Like from my instruction,
Right.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
as opposed
Right.
like because a lot of jujitsu, it's going too fast and you're sort of just
Oh, right.
moving.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're like, get off, like side control. You're like, get off me.
Right.
You're just trying to let me get out.
Yeah.
And of course you're always automatically with some experience doing something that you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
But sometimes I actually stop and think, side control is a good example. If someone's got side control on you, and you're like, how do I get out? Like, what am I supposed to do? And stop for a second and go,
Oh, right.
I need to get this hand in place.
Yep.
I need to get this knee in place. And I need to, and
All right.
sometimes it's not instinctively how you feel you should be, and
Definitely.
you're like, you know what I mean? Like, just side control.
A lot of times it's actually counter to your instincts. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, let me just focus on this total, like we're playing chess.
Yep.
I'm Mr. Spock. What should I be doing?
Yep.
Like, just do what I've been told. And that's the other thing. Just do what I've been told. Like, just don't start trying to wing it and trying to like.
You know what's funny, Dan, that I've come to appreciate just recently in the last 6 months or a year is the order of operations, the sequence of things. So people are kind of, oh, I want to shrimp out. I want to get my arms in. I want to get my legs in. But they're kind of mixing the sequence. And when you do that, you're not as effective. But if you're like, oh, I have to get my arms in place first. Now I have to shrimp. Now I get my leg. Like when you get the order, the sequence correct, you're so much more effective. And I don't think for whatever weird reason, I didn't appreciate that as much until recently.
You might also feel like you've been doing it so long and you sort of probably roughly do what you're supposed to do, but
right.
It almost forces itself on me sometimes because someone's like knee on belly. And I'm like, and then I'm like, what do I do again? Like I was like a moment of forgetting, like, but again, I've been shown, and this happens a lot too. I've been shown 5 escapes. So I'm like, it's not like I don't immediately go to it. So it becomes like, let me think. What's the thing I want to do to get knee on belly off? Like I've been shown, grab leg, do this, do that. And then I'm like, okay, let me think of one and do that.
Well, that's kind of a new theme in jiu-jitsu now that wasn't this way 20 years ago. Is there's so much information out there now that you have to curate and get the best information, not just any information. Last week we were talking about how you did one of the triangle escapes that Gordon Ryan espouses as the only 2 you should concern yourself with, and you did one of them, which is amazing. But so I love that information when somebody at Gordon Ryan's level, some Danaher or somebody says, "Listen, there's 8 ways to get out of this. Once you just focus on these 2," I find that really helpful. So technical solutions is number 3, and okay, Dan. Now we're on to
that we're smoothly moving on.
We're smoothly moving on to our 4th life lesson that you can get from jiu-jitsu. So this is new for me, Dan. New in probably the last year. I'm in my 25th year. So it took me 25, 24 years to come up with this.
Right. So it's possible that the people that have been doing this more than 25 years,
they may already know this.
Right. But anyone that's been doing this less than 25 years should pay attention.
I'm curious to what you think about this because it sounds like a lot of great advice. It sounds slightly obvious and slightly simplistic, but when you think about it, you realize the value of it, right? So here it is, Dan. Do the next deliberate thing. So here's how this works. And this happens to me in training, and this happened to me a lot in matches. So I'm in a jiu-jitsu match, and I'm getting tired. This guy's, he's going hard. We're going hard. And maybe I get to like a half guard position where I have chest on chest, but I don't have an underhook yet. I don't have a cross face, but I got to that thing. So then so even when I'm exhausted, I say to myself, what's the next, not the next, what should I do next? It's really what's the next appropriate thing? Like, what's the next right thing to do? I wrote down what's the next deliberate thing to do? What's the next step in the plan? And sometimes there it'll be like, I can't get an underhook. It'll be get a good crossface. So then I just try to get a good crossface. And as exhausted as I am, if I just do the next thing, what happens is I gain more leverage, and the other guy loses more leverage, and he's kind of tired too.
Yeah.
So like if I just do the next deliberate thing, if I just do the next right thing, I start to build a slow momentum. What happens is the next thing you know, I pass the guy's guard.
Yeah.
And I scored points, and then I end up winning.
I see this as completely related to actually what we said about the technical solutions. Right?
Yes.
Like where you're just like, because it's hard. The other thing is like, I can imagine someone listening like, of course, do what you're supposed to do next, but it's not when you're rolling. It's not like that, right? Like
No.
it's like you're just going, and I
actually find that deliberate dialogue in my head. It's like, all right, what do I do next? Get a crossface. That little mini conversation in my own head is very helpful.
So I have two thoughts. Of one is, as someone with less knowledge than you can be like in some spot where you're like, I'm not sure what to do here.
Right.
But then, especially in training, you know what to ask about.
Exactly.
Right? You go, I got to here.
Good point. Yes.
I didn't know what to do. And that happens to me constantly. But like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then especially if I'm rolling with you or a lot of people, or actually it could even be someone that's, a blue belt. And I'll be like, so what do you do here? And usually people have an answer.
And sometimes, Dan, the answer will be a broad one. So like, I'm by his knees. I got my chest on his chest. What should I do here? Well, you either want to get a near side underhook or a far side underhook. If you can't get any underhooks, the very least is we want a strong crossface. So like, those are great things to know. Yeah. Okay, Dan, I would like to give some real world examples of what's the next thing? What's the next right thing I should be doing? And
these are life lessons. Every one
that's
of them.
right, life lessons. So it's
every
good
one of them applicable.
Yeah.
To outside jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. I'm in jiu-jitsu. I say, what's the next thing to do? What's the next right thing to do? Then I do it. So I suffer from procrastination. Like, I don't know if you know this, but I can be really disorganized. I can procrastinate. It's I don't know. If something doesn't excite me, it's really hard for me to do things. But when I use this question, what's the next thing to do for our YouTube channel? So here's another thing, folks. If you're listening to this on a podcast, that's great. You can also go over to my YouTube channel and you can see the visuals of it. We have a green screen. We've got some good visuals up. And just go to John Connors MMA on YouTube and subscribe there, and you can watch the podcast. But if you like listening, just listen. That's fine. But so what happens, Dan, is when we put these videos together, I have to do certain steps. Like I have to download the video from my camera. So I'm so lazy that I have to tell myself, what's the next thing? Oh, you have to put it in your Dropbox. So then I upload from my phone to my Dropbox. What's the next thing? Oh, now download it to your computer. Okay, now I download it to the computer. And it gives me momentum. So like if I just do the first thing, then I tend to do the next thing. And now I'll rename the files. I'll keep things organized. I'll send it to an editor. And the next thing you know, I've actually completed a video. I've done the project.
Yeah. I use that in life a lot. And
Yeah.
I don't have a prepared example, so I have the one from today, which is we have a bunch of old family photos and I need to get them all online and labeled. And I mean old like great grandparents who I don't know who they are and things like this. So I'm like, while my parents are still around to tell me who's who, I want to get the whole thing sorted. And it's just such a big pain in the ass job, like boxes of photos and so
that's something that I would procrastinate.
Yeah, I can't bring myself to do it, but I'm like, let me get the boxes out of the attic. Right?
One thing.
Just like,
that's the next thing.
And now they're sitting in my living room. And so then once they're in the living room, I'm like, hey, mom and dad, just preparing them, can we go over this sometime and just tell me who's who and I'll jot it down? Like, okay. And we're only about there in the process, but it's okay, now it's getting going because the idea of doing the whole thing was just I can't, it's too much.
Right.
And of course, you're saying with the jiu-jitsu, it's the same. I'm not sure how to get out from under this guy, maybe, but let me get my frame in.
Right.
Something like that.
I found doing really difficult workouts that I'm dreading, which I'm not really doing that now, But for a while there, I would do these hill sprints that were brutal. So I would lie to myself. I think David Goggins says he does this as well. And I said, I'm just going to do one of them. And I would go to my location and I would do one. And I'm like, well, I'm here. I might as well do a couple more. And then I could basically delude myself into doing maybe 4 sets when I told myself I was just going to do one, just do the next thing. So yeah, I think it works in real life.
That's or like a gym, like a weightlifting gym. Where you're like, I'm not gonna go work out, but it's like just get in the car and go there.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Just and I'll do that. It's related to what you're saying. I'll be like, I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna do one thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just gonna. I'm not getting on that treadmill. I'm not gonna do that today. And then usually I get on the treadmill. You know what I mean? Like once you're there. But I delude myself the same thing. Like, just get in the car and go to the gym and let's see what happens. And then, you know what? I'll just do something easy. Bench pressing is easy. Let's just do that.
You just get some momentum and you start rolling. Yeah. I do a workout now. It's the knees over toes guy workout. And what it does is it keeps my knees healthy. And if I don't do it, I'm going to have knee pain and knee issues. But it's kind of tedious. It's not that fun to do. But usually the leg workouts start with walking backwards, like dragging a sled. So I drag a heavy bag around the mat. And it's the same thing. I'm like, well, I'm supposed to do it for 5 minutes. I'll just do it for a couple of minutes. And then I end up doing the 5 minutes like every single time. Yeah.
And then I think really useful for jujitsu, as we've been talking about, is like that idea. If you're like, I don't know how to pass this guard, but I can't seem to pass this guy's guard, but let me just get my, whatever it is, get my hands in the right spot.
And what you're saying is, if you're doing the next thing, you may come to an obstacle, but when you come to an obstacle that you can't yourself overcome, well, now you know where you need help and you can get help from somebody. Yeah.
Yeah. So it pays off even if you don't pass the guard.
Yeah.
Or don't get out from under side control. You know where you got
the sticking point is. Yeah. We used to say that when I would tell people, if you're videoing your sparring, like go to the point where everything went wrong, where you got swept, and fix that problem first. Like, don't try to analyze the whole sparring session. Just go to those inflection points where either you scored or they scored on you, and zero in there, and then you're going to get some pretty useful information for sure. So, Dan, coming up on our 5th life lesson, we should recap, right?
Right. What are the first 4?
Okay. Number 1 was this idea of solving problems in stressful situations, being okay in discomfort, which we came up with that jiu-jitsu is going to force that on you. And, if you can find that in life, that's going to help you as well. Number 2 is process goals over results goals. So we can't always control the results, but we can control our own behavior and activity. And any result you're looking for is going to be the result of certain behaviors and activities. So narrow in on those, focus on those activities and behaviors, and then you're more likely to get your goal anyways. Number 3 was seek technical solutions in life. It's good to try hard and try harder, but sometimes you need technical advice or technical solutions, or you need technology. And that's definitely the case in jiu-jitsu. But I just like that lesson. Like, so many times in life, well, in jiu-jitsu, what happens is when you're in the beginning, you're training hard, whatever you're doing, you're wrestling, you're sparring, and you're not getting the result you want. So your instincts are just to try harder, maybe, And the reality is you need the technical solution. If you're always asking yourself, what is the technical solution in this situation, you just progress much faster and you get better results. And that's the same in life too. Like, why am I not getting the result that I want? And it's might be effort, but it's often poor strategy or wrong technique or something. And number 4 was you ask yourself, what's the next thing? Not a random thing, but what's the next thing I need to do to accomplish my goals? And how can I inch myself along the sequence toward the end result? And now we're coming to the 5th, which I think ties everything together, which is focus on skill development. So, I've been running this academy now for about 18 years, and I'll get a lot of young guys who'll come to me occasionally, and they're looking for life advice. And like, gee, what should I do? Should I get a career in real estate, or should I go into finance, or what should I do? And the big answer, the meta answer is whatever you do, just try to develop skills in that domain, in that arena. So you could go into real estate, say, and if you're learning about real estate, you're learning whatever it is, how to sell, how to assess, whatever it is. If you're developing your skill and your knowledge in the domain, you might be unsuccessful for a number of years, but eventually you're going to be successful and you're going to be able to add value. All value comes from skill development, I would think, right?
Right. And I think you've said before, I don't know if you agree with this or not, I think this is too bold a claim, that focusing on your skill development you could argue, is the central um, mental or philosophical approach to your jujitsu training overall, right?
I
Like
think so.
just like come in, focus on the skills, try not to get distracted by all the other things
Yeah.
that distract you in a jujitsu gym, and there's plenty. And that's the same as outside of jujitsu as well, right?
I think so. I think it solves all problems. So if I go to practice and I'm frustrated that I'm not getting promoted fast enough, if I focus on my skill development, I'm eventually going to get promoted because it's going to be manifest that I'm good enough and so forth. And my results are going to improve against my opponents if I keep improving my skill. Um, and if I'm focused on skill development, I'm going to have less of those up and down days where, oh, I had a great day today. I tapped all these guys. Oh, I had a bad day today because I got tapped. Everyone passed my guard. So, then it gets a little binary, a little black and white. If I'm just going in there to focus on skill development, I could literally lose every exchange but develop my skills. And I could have a good day almost every day if I focus on skill development.
Right. And in the end, you realize the other stuff doesn't matter in your jujitsu development. Like if someone,
Right.
you have your nemesis that you're equal matched with and he beats you that day, it doesn't really matter,
No.
but people focus on it and,
Yeah.
and obsess over it. Or,
Right.
I tapped 3 people today, but I only got tapped once. Like none of that really has any bearing on your development.
Not
Yeah.
necessarily. And it can be a
Right.
big distraction. And it can cause tension and conflict between you and your training partners and animosity that's totally unnecessary. And so when I'm focusing on skill development, Dan, it makes me relax more too, and I don't have to beat my training partners. And it also helps me in competition. Like my son and I went down to New York this weekend and we competed at the New York Open. And going into it, I always have nerves before I compete. But one of the things I say to myself is, what skill am I trying to develop today? And it was my takedown skill. And again, I didn't get a takedown, of course, but just having that approach takes the pressure off. Like it's not that important if I win or lose. It would be nice to have a good performance, but if we're truly after skill development, then I have to go display and try some new skills in my match, not just look to win.
Right. And I've been trying it in training where, I think it's the same thing. Tell me if you disagree, where say there's someone, a white belt, who's a young athletic white belt, and he's mounted and I'm really concentrating on working on my escapes and from mount.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just trying to work on that. And my mind is not really like, did this white belt, get the better of me, because I'm not trying my hardest to get him off. I'm saying I want to work on the escape and the technical.
Right.
I want to do the escape right. Maybe I even know I could grab his arm and his leg because he doesn't know it and roll him over.
Right.
But I don't, because I'm like, that's not the escape, the proper escape, and that's not long term going to work. And so it's like maybe he stays mounted a lot longer, but my ego's not part of that,
Right.
because I'm just saying I'm trying to get this done.
Yeah, you can stay relaxed and keep in the right mind space to improve. I do that when I'm doing takedowns with my son. Sometimes they'll think, "Oh, I'm just going to focus on these 1 or 2 takedowns and just try to make them work. Don't worry about the results. Don't worry if I get taken down." And it puts me in a more relaxed state, and I actually think have better results. And of course, I can develop my skills that way. If I go in there afraid to get taken down at all and fight to the death against every takedown, then I probably won't develop my takedowns that well. I might stalemate him, but it's probably not the most fruitful training for either one of us. So that's skill development, Dan.
On the mat and off the mat.
Everywhere. Like just doing these podcasts and doing,
Yeah,
I made enough.
Maybe we should be focusing on our, I just realized we're focusing on our podcast skill development.
Dan, I
feel like I have not been focusing on
I made so many mistakes in this particular episode. There's so much fertile areas for skill development. It's just stunning. But
yeah, it's very promising in that way because we have a lot of skills we could develop.
Well, on my YouTube channel, I think I made over 300 shorts. And the great thing about that was, and it was just do the next thing. I was like, just do another short today. Is I did learn a lot. I learned what people are really interested in. I made a lot of mistakes, and I tried some things that people will tell you work, but it didn't really work for me. So I think my shorts are getting better and better, and our podcasts are going to get better and better for sure. I mean, we had some technical difficulties this one. I blame our producer, Dimitri. I think it's all his fault.
Yeah.
But we'll get better. And people, please share this episode. Tell your friends about it. If they have any interest in jiu-jitsu, if they have any interest in life, there's some life lessons here. Tell your friends about it. Get them to listen to it. Get them to go to the YouTube channel and watch it. And
even if your friends that don't have interest in jiu-jitsu or life, maybe they could still
probably need it the most.
Yeah, they might need it the most, right?
That's it. All right. Thanks, folks.